Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. For me, it is just past midnight on Tuesday, February 3rd, 2025, which will be the first day of my vacation. I want to say that. So that makes this the news and events for Monday, February 2nd, day 1439 of Vladimir Putin's 3 day special military operation in Ukraine. How do you do? I'm Peter Alexievich, and this is the Live at 5 from Kyiv. Coming to you live from Warsaw, actually, tonight, as I am heading out of town to a friend's wedding, which I'm really very excited about. It's the first real break that I've taken in 3 years, 3 years in Ukraine. The peeps are coming in. There's Carl. How you doing, Carl Firm? Hey, Sarah Bradshaw. How you living? Hey, Jackie, good evening. Hey, Gary. How's everybody doing tonight? Hey, Gigi. Hey, John H. Doing? You doing? Hey, Flavius. Hey, Phil. Hey, T-Bone. Hey, Oddman. Robert Stewart Key, how do you do? Hey, Miss Lola. How you doing? Hey, Guard. And I greet you with respect, Flavius. Hey, Colin. Good evening. How you living, man? Feeling groovy? Hey, Biker Shrink. Poland was great, man. I'm on a plane out of here first thing in the morning, but Poland's always great to me, you know. I got to my favorite English language bookstore in Europe. I did not get to my favorite restaurant in town. That I was hoping to do that tonight, but that didn't happen. But the weather's gorgeous. It's cold, but it's bright and sunny. And I got Burger King. I'm so excited because there's no Burger King in Kyiv, right? So I haven't had a Whopper since last April. The last time I was out of Kyiv. Last April I had a Whopper, and I had a Whopper and a chicken sandwich last night. So I got to go to Burger King. Burger King is the high point of my time in Warsaw, which tells you that I'm an American for real. Doc, I'm sorry to hear it, pal. Hey, Anthony. Seawolf, how you doing, buddy? Hey, Seawolf, I got your thing, but there's not going to be any lives for like 2 weeks now. Or at least, I don't think so. Watch over the next 2 weeks. I might go live from Beijing if I can. So maybe Seawolf will get you in on one of those. But just FYI, be patient with me. I stopped taking live sponsorships about 2 weeks ago, or at least I started announcing that. Because I'm out of here now for at least the next 2 weeks. Shit, I forget who is our sponsor tonight. I'm gonna owe Seawolf and Leo Ring some sponsorships when I get back. And man, it went right. Hang on for 1 second. I'll be right. Hang on for 1 second. I'll be right back. Derek Sands. Derek Sands. Everybody thank. I don't know if Derek's in yet. I didn't see Derek come in, but everybody thank Derek Sands, who is the sponsor of tonight's live. So, Lars, it's funny you say that, right? Lars says, is Warsaw still standing after my arrival? Dude, the weather was so cold. It was nice weather, but it was so cold. I didn't want to go outside. I really did not. I went out today mostly because FTD 3232 was interested in some videos from Warsaw. And I had a couple things to do in town. So I finally today, the last day in town, managed to get my ass off the sofa. And I'm sorry about last night. I meant to be live last night, but I fell asleep during, what the hell was I watching? Oh, Sherlock, right, with Benjamin Cumberbatch and Martin, what's his name? Which was a great series if you've never seen it. I fell right asleep on the sofa, and I woke up too out of it to do a live or anything. So I'm sorry about last night. Now, Lars, the question of Warsaw is still standing, right? An unidentified drone, we're getting reports now that about 5 hours ago, an unidentified drone that is in the initial reports being described as like a retail toy drone, not a military drone, not an attack drone, not a reconnaissance drone, but rather a retail toy kind of drone, did crash at a military base near Warsaw here. So at this time, we don't have many details. Again, the description is one of a toy drone at this point, not a military drone. So if you see it being reported that a drone has crashed in Warsaw or near Warsaw, A, I had nothing to do with it. First things first. Second of all, it is not a military, it is not being reported as a military drone. So at this time, we have no reason to implicate the Russians in this situation. We don't even have anything to indicate that it's anything other than some kid whose drone went awry, right? That's all that we know at this time. Hey, Anthony, Tommy, Tom, how you doing? Hey, Drew. You know, kid, after almost a year without a Whopper, it is nice to have a Whopper. I do like a Whopper. Hey, Feisty. It's Feisty. It's so funny. Last night we were talking about doing a live and then I fell asleep. Getting old. Hey, Bernard. Hey, Nicola. Hey, Sammy. How's Kalina's studio doing? Hey, Mike Now. Hey, Blue. Derek Sands is our sponsor tonight. The kid was our sponsor last night. I owe Leo Ring. I owe Seawolf. And I think somebody else too. And maybe we'll be able to do some lives from Beijing. I'm supposed to go to the Great Wall on the 12th. So I would very much like to be live from the Great Wall of China. The problem is when I'm there, it's likely to be the middle of the fucking night for most of you. So that's what's happening with me. But to stand on the Great Wall is going to be, it's the trip of a lifetime, you know? When am I ever going to go back to China? You know? When am I ever going to go back to China? Hey, Neil Stephen. Hey, Bernard. Deb. All right. So, guys, I've been playing it kind of fast and loose. Hey, Yvonne. Hey, Richard Prexis. I've been playing it kind of fast and loose the last few days. Hey, Scotty. But I have prepared some data for tonight. I've prepared a few things for tonight. And I'd like to start with last night's missile and drone attacks on Ukraine. We saw 172 drones come in. 154 were intercepted. Now that's some good shooting, boys, right? I think about Dragon and I think about the anti-drone teams that are out there using interceptor drones. I think about the Air Force, 92% interception rate. However, that still means that 18 drones got through. And it means that 14 people were unalived in Ukraine last night. It was not a good weekend, not by any stretch of the imagination. We saw 5 people killed in drone attacks overnight Friday. We saw 4 overnight Saturday. And last night we saw 14. One Iskander M also came in last night and caused some damage to energy infrastructure in Ukraine, despite the fact that energy infrastructure in Ukraine is supposed to be off limits right now. Now, we all know this is bullshit. You cannot trust the fucking Russians. They're not abiding by this. So it'll be interesting to see. Zelensky said that they would mirror the attacks. So if Russia continues to hit energy infrastructure, which they are clearly doing, then Ukraine should respond in kind. And that's a problem for Moscow because Moscow is dealing with grid failures already and a lot of pushback from inside the country. because those grid failures are caused by the incompetence and corruption inherent in the Russian system, not by Ukrainian attacks. Although some of them are by Ukrainian attacks, that's true. In southern Russia, it's Ukrainian attacks. In northern Russia, it's the Russians' own incompetence and corruption. Now, I need to make a correction here because Friday overnight, we saw a cascade failure, and somebody tried to tell me about it. I apologize. I forget who said that it wasn't the Russians that hit the transmission lines about it. I apologize. I forget who said that it wasn't the Russians that hit the transmission lines from Romania. And apparently, I don't know how I got that wrong, guys, but apparently it was not the Russians that hit the Romanian Moldovan transmission lines. We're getting word from the president's office and from the energy minister, Shibaya, that it was a technical malfunction because of frozen lines. So the intense cold in Ukraine on Friday now, of course, it wouldn't have happened if the power grid weren't already fragile from 4 winters of incessant Russian attacks and the Ukrainians having to patchwork things just to keep the lights on and keep Ukrainian grandmothers and children from freezing in their beds at night, which is the ongoing challenge that energy workers in Ukraine face every day. So again, the correction is the cascade failure on Friday that resulted in the Kyiv metro shutting down was not the result, by all official Ukrainian positions, was not the fault of Russian strikes, but rather a technical malfunction. One of the big things happening this week, of course, is that the trilateral talks will resume on Thursday. Now, the trilateral talks between Russia, Ukraine, and the U.S. were supposed to recommence on February 1st. And initially, we got word that the Americans weren't going to be there. The Americans were pulling out of those talks. Now we have word that the talks have been rescheduled to begin on Thursday, the 4th, with the Americans present, though it's unclear whether it's going to be Witkoff and Kushner there or somebody from the Rubio camp. And this is important because Witkoff and Kushner are very clearly in the pockets of the Kremlin. They are doing the Kremlin's work. We saw Kaylin Robertson, the independent journalist, young Irish kid doing a great job for Ukraine. Corner Steve Witkoff at Davos and challenge him. What are your business interests in Russia? Do you have money on the line? If you have business interests in Russia, don't you think you should not be negotiating between Russia and Ukraine as you are clearly compromised? And these are the kinds of questions that journalists should be posing, right? Speaking truth to power. And yet the only person doing it is this kid, right? This kid, Kaylin Robertson, who I recommend you follow if you don't. We don't know whether it's going to be the Russian camp of Kushner and Witkoff on Thursday, or whether it's going to be Marco Rubio, who is taking a more balanced approach, a less aggressive tenor against Marco Rubio, who is taking a more balanced approach, a less aggressive tenor against Ukraine. Something Russian papers, and again, our deep thanks to Steve Rosenberg, the BBC bureau chief, who brings us the Russian papers and the translations. The Russian papers today do not have a lot of confidence that these peace talks are going anyway. Are going anywhere, rather. Moskovsky Komsomolsk sees no sign that these talks will make any breakthroughs or that they will go anywhere. Saying that Abu Dhabi will not be the final nor even the penultimate, that is the second to last resolution of the issues. Izvestia reports that the issue of territory remains the main one. And of course it is. Nobody in their right mind cedes territory that no Russian soldier has ever set foot on. And yet the Russians are demanding. The Kremlin also came out and said this week that European peacekeepers on the territory of Ukraine post-war are unacceptable to it. As we know, as they've been saying right along, they do everything they can to sabotage these peace talks before they even really begin. So it's unclear where these peace talks are going. And it is unclear how Ukraine takes these peace talks seriously against a backdrop of Russian strikes on energy infrastructure that have left 60% of Kyiv with power less than 3 hours a day. Over 200 high-rise apartment buildings still without heat. I was talking to my neighbor today, and the heat is on in the building. It's just enough to get it to around 50 inside. So you depend on those electric heaters and having some electricity to get you to a livable point. It's not livable right now for so many Ukrainians. It's a fucking nightmare. It is important to remember that these so-called peace talks are happening against the backdrop of continued Russian drone strikes that murder Ukrainian civilians every day. We saw a strike in Zaporizhia that killed 2 on Saturday night. We saw a strike in Zaporizhia on a maternity hospital. To target a maternity hospital, to target pregnant women, it is a base, disgusting, immoral action that highlights the difference between the Ukrainians who target military infrastructure trying to degrade Russia's ability to prosecute the war and the barbarians that are at the gate who would murder babies and their mothers. Pure evil, Nicola. It's pure evil. And you want to talk about pure evil. Look at the attack on yesterday, right, Sunday. We saw 15 miners unalived. No, I'm sorry, miners, right? Guys who go down into the coal mines to bring up the coal that feeds the coal-fired energy plants of Ukraine, that keeps people warm and the lights on. Right, Derek. Oh no, that's DeepSeek. Right, it's not even the first time that they've targeted maternity hospitals, children's hospitals, schools. That is the pattern from Grozny, from Ossetia, from Syria. They destroy the civilian infrastructure to create an unlivable world that drives a refugee crisis into Europe. Now, I'm unaware of that, DeepSeek. I'm aware of the strike over the weekend. During a shift change, a busload of miners was hit by at least 4 drones. 15 of those miners were killed. 16 were injured. These guys were just miners in a shift change after a long, hard day of digging that black gold out of the ground. They were just going home to their families, and their bus was hit. Now, look, I don't know about you, but if that's not an attack on energy infrastructure, killing the men who bring the coal out of the ground so that you can keep everybody warm at night, if that's not an attack on energy infrastructure, I don't know what is. So against these so-called peace talks, you have this backdrop of unlimited violence against Ukrainian civilians committed by these barbarous animals every day. And it offends me on a very deep level that I have to say this next thing. We have word that up to 8 Tu-95s, up to 7 Tu-22s, and 10 MiG-31s. MiG-31s are the ones that carry the Kinzhal hypersonic missiles, as well as half a dozen Iskander-M ground launch sites all along the Ukrainian border, have been set up. The jets are scrambled. The drones are already in the air. We have strike drones right now in the air. And either tonight or tomorrow, it is likely that these bombers, who are now being organized on the tarmac and loaded up with missiles, are going to pound Ukraine. And I hate not being there. Like, the timing of all of this and the wedding is most unfortunate to me. I would prefer to be home in Kyiv right now. I really would. Because I'm very worried about everybody that's there. It's all I can think about. And I'm very worried about what's going to happen tonight or tomorrow. Because it looks like this is what's coming. It does look like this is what's coming. So, that's the peace talks. As if you could negotiate with these terrorists. You can't negotiate with terrorists. You can't do it. Okay. Now, everybody is interested in how much longer can Russia do this, right? How much longer can the Russian economy afford $300 million a day to attempt the genocide of Ukraine? And we don't have a good answer to that. We know that Russia is broke, that they are being forced to sell their gold reserves, what little is left, right? They started the war with 700 tons of gold in the National Wealth Fund. The last number, verified number that I saw, was they're down to 173.1 metric tons of gold. And they have sold gold since that number was published. So they're selling off the gold reserves. They're down to about 34 billion in the National Wealth Fund, but they've got a $60 billion deficit from last year. They are broke. 11 states of the Russian Federation have stopped paying signing bonuses because they're broke. What else are we hearing? In the Russian papers today, in Nesevaya Gazetia, one third of Russians are alarmed by the threat of a lack of money. The impoverishment, quote, this is a quote from Gazetia. The impoverishment of the population is the main problem in Russia, according to 40% of Russians with higher education. In January 2026, there was an increase in Russians' economic anxiety and fear over their personal economic situation and the general situation in the country. So educated Russians understand that they are being impoverished. They understand that this hoarding of wealth by 500 or 400 oligarchs at the top of the food chain is tearing the fabric of Russian society apart, as well it is. Commerçant writes today, the incidence of non-psychotic disorders, depression, anxiety, and stress disorders has increased significantly. According to data from Rostat, between 2020 and 2024, the incidence of non-psychotic disorders had increased inside the Russian Federation by 21.5%. So Ukraine may be suffering, and clearly Ukraine is suffering, but the Russians aren't escaping it either. Now, Kommersant goes on to write that we don't have good data for 2025 yet, except indirect data. And that indirect data points to an increased sale of antidepressant medications to the Russian general public. Nobody's having a good time here. Nobody. Russovismaya Gazetia, the Russian state paper, writes today that there will be a limit on export of gold bullion of 100 grams. So as a private individual, you can't move more than 100 grams of gold out of the country. The idea is to block the withdrawal of capital from the country. So right now, the Russians are worried that anybody with any money is trying to flee the country. And they are. Of course they are. Who would want to stay? It's a death sentence. When Putin is gone, and he must soon be gone, this nation will descend into a violence, an orgy of violence, the likes of which the world has not seen in this century. And these people know it. These people know it. The Chechens know it. The Chechens know that with the Kadyrov line in danger, they got to get out of there. Because the internecine warfare between the tribal groups inside Chechnya will explode when the Kadyrovs are out of the picture. Right now, according to the German Interior Ministry, 8,000 of the roughly 10,000 asylum applications from Russians, 80% of them are Chechens. That's the domino to watch, my friends. Watch Chechnya. It's coming. It's coming. And the Chechens know it. That's why they're trying to get the fuck out. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Now, a lot of you, I talk to a lot of you, and a lot of you follow economics and economic issues. And so you know who S&P is. Standard & Poor's. I used to have a good buddy work for Standard & Poor's for a number of years. And Standard & Poor's and the Standard & Poor's index, the S&P 500, is a preeminent source right up there with Bloomberg for financial data research, right? And I just found out, I did not know this, but they quarterly publish research on an analysis of the Russian economy. Who knew? I didn't know. So the latest version of the Standard & Poor's analysis of the Russian Federation economy is out, and it's a good read. I recommend it highly. The analysis starts out with, or rather, I should say, that one of the critical pieces of the analysis is the Purchasing Managers Index. Now, for anybody who follows this kind of stuff, you know the Purchasing Managers Index gives us an indice of growth potential or loss, recessionary pressure. So the baseline index is 50%, or not 50 rather. And what that tells us is if the number is around 50, the market is stable. We're not seeing growth. We're not seeing a loss. Things are proceeding along normally. If, however, the index is above 50, that means growth. It means that purchasing managers are buying more raw materials so that they can create more product and grow the business. But if the purchasing managers index falls below 50, it means that they are buying less material. They expect their output to drop. And that's precisely what's happening inside Russia. The purchasing managers index is currently sitting at 49.4, indicating a contraction inside the Russian economy. And this is across all industries. Now, why is this? Why is the Russian economy contracting? Well, we saw them raise the value-added tax. No, Russia is not self-sufficient, not in any way, shape, or form. 80% of the electronic components in Russian missiles and drones are manufactured by the Chinese. That's a fact. Now, the other 20% is very disconcerting because much of that comes from the West. We just saw the scandal with Ubiquity, right? This guy, he owns a basketball team, doesn't he? The Grizzlies, I think. I'm not sure. I don't follow basketball. But this American company, Feisty's saying yes. The Grizzlies are in Memphis. I must have it wrong. It must not be the Grizzlies then. But anyway, the guy's a billionaire with a big company, right? I think Ubiquity's got a 30 billion market cap, something like that. And he owns his own basketball team. He's one of those guys. Well, the son of a bitch is selling parts to Russia. It's like the company has no. I'm sure you know more about it than me. So he's just selling shit to the Russians. There have to be consequences for these people. There have to be consequences. If you're going to soak your hands in the blood of Ukrainian children for money, there better be fucking consequences for you. Now, see, Pingu, we need to see more of that in the U.S. Right? Pingu is saying that Germany arrested 20 people for sanctions violations selling components to Russia. Yeah, guys, I'm sorry. There's not much I can do about the internet. I'm happy to repeat myself if anybody has a specific thing I need to repeat. But I know the connection is tough here tonight, and I don't know why. So Lamb Chop normally all my lives are reposted to YouTube. But I am traveling and I don't have a desktop to do the downloads to and then the uploads from. So the next 2 weeks are going to be tough. The next 3 weeks are going to be tough, honestly. Wait a minute. This place has a laptop in the business, or has a desktop in the business center. Maybe I could get these uploaded. I will try to do that tonight. Let me see if I can make that happen. Okay, so let's go back to the S&P analysis of the Russian economy. Because how long can the Russians hold on? They are holding on by their own bleeding fingernails, right? We see that the purchasing managers index is in the red. There is a contraction coming to the Russian economy. We know that the value-added tax has been raised to 22%. And here's the thing about the value-added tax. The tax is applied to everything that's sold inside of Russia, or virtually everything. So that means if I'm selling a product, right? I sell peanuts. When I sell these next week, I got to increase the price by 2% because I have to collect that tax for the government so that they can keep the pressure on the Ukrainians. That's why the tax is up. The only thing is, I buy this can from a can manufacturer in Russia. I buy the peanuts from Russian farmers in Russia. They have to collect the 2% tax when I buy the can and when I buy the peanuts. So the peanuts don't go up 2%. The compounding nature of the value-added tax inside of Russia, according to the S&P analysis, will result in approximately a 3 to 5% increase in prices because of the compounding effects of the manufacturer costs. Now, we're in a world where, according to the official numbers, the rate of inflation in Russia has dropped to 5.6%, which does not seem possible. It seems like the Russians are just lying about that. Hankey's certainly thinks that they are lying about it. Hankey's puts the interest rate at closer to 17% today. But regardless, if you actually did just get the interest rate down to 5.6%, you're now looking at that the inflationary rate. If you just got it down to 5.6%, you're now looking at an 8.6 to 10.6% inflation because of this new tax. There is some wonderful analysis, not the S&P analysis. I forget who did it. It wasn't Laura Giganti over at Atlantic Council. I apologize. I forget who did it. But there was one analysis of the new value-added tax that suggested that rather than generating tens of billions of dollars in new income for the government, it would actually reduce consumer spending and reduce the amount of tax brought in by about 50 billion rubles, which is about $500 million. So in fact, rather than generating new income, there is some analysis out there that suggests that this will actually drop the amount of tax slightly that the government is collecting. Now that would be nice to see, I got to tell you. That would be one of those little math ironies that would make my heart sing a little bit. What else is driving the purchasing manager index down? Weak demand. Weak employment numbers. Now, look, the Russians have had very high employment because they've got a labor shortage, right? They don't have 1.2 million men fled the country at the start of the full-scale invasion. Then you've got casualties in the 1.2 million range who are not contributing to the economy the way that they should in their prime. Unemployment has been remarkably low inside of Russia for the last 4 years because they've got a manpower shortage. Well, unemployment is starting to rise. Unemployment and unpaid wages. And the pace of it is accelerating. How did you go broke? Somebody asked the rich man, the formerly rich man. And the guy said, well, I went broke very slowly and then all at once. And that's how these things play out. We are seeing an accelerating pace of weak demand, an accelerating pace of unemployment, an accelerating pace of failing exports. Now, this is so important. The Russian economy is an export economy. It is based on raw materials being exported to countries outside itself, who then turn those raw materials into finished product. The pace of exports is falling, and it's falling. It's been falling at an accelerated pace since June of 2025. Now, why are falling exports so important for the Russian Federation? Nobody wants rubles. Nobody's dealing in rubles. According to the Yale School of Management, the ruble is a dead currency for international exchange. Nobody wants it. Who would want it? It's a dead currency. That means that for the Russians to buy imported goods, they must have foreign capital. They must have yuan. They must have United Arab Emirates dirhams. They must have cash from outside of Russia. And as exports drop off, less and less of that foreign capital comes in, making Russia less and less able to afford imports from other partners. And if you're thinking to yourself the Chinese will help them out, you're out of your fucking mind. The export market to China from Russia, it makes up about 36% of Russian exports. It's about 39% of Russian imports coming from China. For the Chinese, that's 2 and 3% respectively. The Chinese could drop the Russians completely, embargo the country, destroy the Russian economy, and they wouldn't even notice. That's the friendship without limits. That is the Russia-China relationship. Stock levels are also dropping. Now, this is also important. You know, you got a business. You keep a warehouse full of your shit, so if people want to buy it, you can sell it to them. Well, that's not what's happening anymore. The manufacturers are selling out their warehouses. They're emptying the warehouses. They're not keeping finished product on hand, which means they do not foresee a time that demand is going to resume. And they do not want to be stuck with a lot of product that they cannot sell. Confidence in the economy is falling. Oh, okay, wait, I'll do that last. This is the Standard and Poor's analysis of the Russian Federation economy. And it paints a picture of weak demand, weak employment numbers, weak exports, weak stock levels, and a falling purchasing manager index, indicating an imminent recession inside the Russian economy. I also saw, I think it was Jay in Kyiv, if I'm not mistaken, it was Jay in Kyiv over on the Twitter, who had some great data about the Russian mortgage crisis. Russian bad debt has accelerated. It is up 76% year over year from last year. 76% more. Homes are in foreclosures. Businesses have unpaid loans. One of the big problems for industry is the servicing debt. Interest rates are so high at 16.5% that commercial loans are being written at 20, 22, 24% interest. No one can afford that. You can't service the debt. And so right now we're talking about a world in which a world in which 40% of all Russian businesses have bad loans that they cannot repay and are 90 days or more behind in their payments. None of this bodes well. Okay, that's my top line stuff for today, guys. Again, big thanks to Derek Sands, who is the sponsor of this live. Thanks to Lars, who has the Discord server, Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group on the Book of Faces, and of course, the best moderator team on the Tickety Talk, Feisty. I don't know, is Maddie here? I don't know what Maddie's doing. I thought she retired, but maybe she's here. That's okay. So Feisty, Maddie, Roy Daniels, who has really stepped up lately, and I can't appreciate him enough. Of course, Pete, who we're so glad to have back, and my buddy Travis, without whom this channel would not exist. I want to point that out. Travis is a good friend of mine for a long time, and it was Travis that introduced me to TikTok and remains my TikTok mentor to this day. So big thanks to everybody who makes this channel possible. Thanks, everybody. Okay, now a couple things came in here in the questions. So questions time, guys, questions, comments, points of observation, anything at all. One of the questions that came in was Indian oil. As I understand, and I assume that what you're talking about is Russian. Something very interesting about this that I have not been able to verify. If we look at the Bloomberg analysis for the first 2 weeks of January, what we see is that Indian oil sales are down that is, oil sales to India by the Russians. Oil sales to India are down from a high of 2.1 million barrels a day in August to about 800,000 barrels a day today. That's less than half. More importantly, according to Bloomberg, the average price of a barrel of Urals crude to the Indians was $35 a barrel for the first 2 weeks of January. Bill Browder said, and again, I have not been able to verify this, there's only 6 Indian oil companies. None of the state-owned oil companies are buying Russian crude anymore. There's only 6 independent oil refineries in India that are still buying Russian crude. And it was Sir Bill Browder's perspective that America could put an end to that tomorrow just by sanctioning those 6 companies. And he may be right, but it's unlikely to happen with Donald in charge. So I hope that answers the question about Indian crude and what's happening there. James wants to know, have I watched the Steve Rosenberg documentary? I have not, James. I don't have a BBC iPlayer. I don't have BBC here in Eastern Europe. But I do know, for those of you who have access to those things, Steve Rosenberg, who I have the utmost respect for, the guy's been living in Moscow for like 30 years and is the BBC editor for the Moscow desk. And it's his insight into the Russian papers that I bring you every night, right? Like, I'm not the one translating the Russian papers and reading them. I'm getting it from Rosenberg, who's great on this. He did a documentary, I guess, and I guess it premiered on BBC One on Friday. And for anybody who has access to that, I bet it's good. But I have not seen it myself, Mr. Fuzzy. Let's see. What else is going on? I don't know anything about a Tulsi Gabbard whistleblower. I do know that Tulsi Gabbard is in Putin's pocket. I mean, look, you don't make the number of trips that she made to Syria to meet one-on-one with Assad unless Assad is passing messages back and forth on your behalf to the Kremlin. Come on. And the shits come out of her mouth? Unbelievable. Unbelievable that these people are walking around D.C. free. Mm-hmm. Boom, boom. Guys, we got a guy in here called Staining University. And I got to tell you, pal, I was curious about your name, so I looked you up. And the guy does videos on, like, how to stain your deck, how to do this, how to do that, what kinds of different stains, yada, yada. Correct me if I'm misrepresenting you. But it's worth checking out. If you got a DIY project to do, I was interested. I really was, buddy. If you got a DIY project to do, I would encourage you to check out Staining University. I mean, when I first saw your name, I thought it was like, shark porn or something. So it was nice to see that it wasn't. Hey, Birdie B, how you doing? Steve McSteven stains his shirt, no problem. Oh, you know what you can't get out of a shirt? Fanta. Fanta, the Yahtzee drink of choice. The Fanta Fura in D.C. Why are EU and Canada not pressuring China to stop trading with Russia? I don't know the answer to that, Den. I don't know the answer to that. I think right now, when it comes to the trade wars, everybody is so distracted by the chaos that is the Tangerine Palpatine that there's very little room for other thoughts or negotiations or efforts or whatever. And of course, the Canadians just struck a good trade deal with China. You can't fault them for it because the Americans fucked them over so bad. Why wouldn't they? So you can't fault Canada for wanting to preserve their own economy. Thanks, Staining you. Yeah, my pleasure. No, I liked the videos. It was good. So, Sean, that's a great question. The question of the flamingos. We don't see a flamboyance of flamingos migrating into Russia. And I don't know why. The flamingo production was supposed to ramp up, right? They were supposed to ramp up to like 100 a month by now. It doesn't look like it's happened. Now, it could be, part of that could be a supply chain bottleneck in the jet engines. The jet engines are actually being produced in Denmark. I want to say Denmark. One of the Scandinavian countries is actually producing the jet engines. And so they've got to be shipped down, and then the missiles can be finished. And I don't know. And so they've got to be shipped down, and then the missiles can be finished. And I don't know if that's a bottleneck or if the bottleneck with production is in Ukraine. But to the best of my knowledge, I think that the problem with the Flamingo is that it's easy to shoot down. It does not have the detection and avoidance technology of other missiles, right? We know that in the couple of occasions that it's been used, 2 out of 3 of them have been shot down. And then only 1 out of 3 actually impacts the target within the circle of error probability. So they're not as precise as we'd like them to be. They're easy to shoot down. They lack the detection and avoidance capabilities of other systems. This means that if you want to ensure you're going to destroy the target, you've got to send roughly 3 times as many as you think you need to destroy the target. And so I think that what's likely is that the Ukrainians are producing as many as they can, as fast as they can, to build up a stockpile so that when they use them, whatever they point them at will be destroyed, despite these limitations. So, Sean, I think that's what's going on there. Pingu. Pingu's afraid of sharks, as all good penguins should be. Hey, Pugga Mahone. Second in quiz night. Good job, Bertie. You win anything? So Nightshade sent me this thing. Nightshade has this comment here. Soliev wants to nuke Starlink. And Nightshade sent me this great piece today about Soliev live wanting to nuke Starlink, right? And we'll talk about that in a second. But I want to talk about one other thing that Soliev said today. He claimed that Ukraine was unaliving 50,000 Russians a month. Really? Because Soliev has been telling us for 4 years, there are no Ukrainians left. We have killed them all. No Ukrainians, they send all the men to fight us. Ukraine is finished. We have to listen to this bullshit all the well, I listen to it so you don't have to. Now he's saying that the Ukrainians are unaliving 50,000 Russians a month. Now, maybe it's a bad translation, right? Because we know that Mikhail Fedorov, the new defense minister and former minister of digital transformation for Ukraine, has said that he wants to get the number up to 50,000 a month. So maybe it's a bad translation. Maybe he was referencing that. I'm not sure. But what was very clear was that he thinks it would be a good idea to send a nuclear bomb into near space, blow it up in order to destroy the Starlink satellites. I got to tell you, that's about the dumbest idea I've ever heard. It is dumb on so many levels. It's not even funny. I don't know what altitude Starlink is at, but I'll bet you it's around 300 miles. Does anybody know? Would somebody look that up? At what altitude do Starlink satellites orbit the Earth? They're in near space. They're not in outer space. You know, they're in like the ISS belt, right? Just above the surface of the planet. It's right up there with nuke and hurricanes, Paul. It's right up there with nuke and hurricanes, right? Thank you. Okay, so there's some differences of opinion here. Oh, and there's also differences of measurement. Miles versus kilometer. Now, Rick hits it right on the head. The first concern I have. The first concern. There's more than one. But the first concern is right there. 550 kilometers. Somewhere between 210 miles, 342 miles. 340 to 570 kilometers. All right. All right, Casey, thank you. 342 miles. Okay. So right about International Space Station height, right? So a couple things. First of all, there is no atmosphere there. And this is very little atmosphere, right? And this is important because you don't get a blast wave without an atmosphere. You don't get a fireball without an atmosphere. So you light off a nuclear device in near space like that. The practical impact, what you really get, as somebody pointed out, I'm sorry, I forget who it was, somebody pointed out quite correctly, you get an electromagnetic pulse. And that electromagnetic pulse shorts out everything, every transistor in the satellite, right? An EMP, as Steve McStevens says there. The only thing is that EMP is multi-directional. You can't focus it. An EMP detonated in near space over, say, North America would burn out every solenoid and transistor from about Nunavut to Mexico City. I mean, depending on the size of the device, right? It's insanity. It's insanity. You would turn back, you would drop the world back into the Stone Age. It's crazy talk. Not only that, there's the concern about the satellites themselves. You could shred the satellites, turning them into shrapnel that's moving at 30,000 miles an hour on unpredictable and decaying orbital paths. They could end up shredding every telecommunications satellite and the ISS that's in low Earth orbit. Everything, including every Russian satellite. It is as dumb an idea as sending a nuke to blow up a hurricane. It's insanity. Yeah, right. They did this shit before, Matthew. Remember they tried slamming a defunct satellite into another one to see if they could weaponize the satellite and destroy the defunct satellite, which they did. The only thing is, it had repercussions. All kinds of repercussions. Okay. You know, my neighbor just gave me some Soviet postage stamps. People are so nice to me in Kyiv. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. But one of my neighbors gave me some Soviet postage stamps, and I thought that was so nice of her. Really cool. Just really cool. Oh, that's old news, Ron. Ron's talking there about those Australian Abrams. A bunch of them are already on the battlefield at Pokrovsk destroying Russian positions. That's going on right now, buddy. I don't understand the question, kid. Who's on what? Okay. So, guys, it's just past 1 o'clock in Kyiv. So it's time for me to... Oh, who's on the stamps? No, it's an image. It's like the Soviet star. You know, the red star. Huh. DeepSeek, it's not even funny. It's not even funny. So, ladies and gentlemen, today is day 1,439 of Russia's 3-day special military operation. I have been doing this channel. This channel has existed since day 466 of the war. So almost, I'm coming up on 1,000 days. My 1,000-day birthday or anniversary or whatever. Well, happy birthday, Risky, to your mom. But my 1,000 days of doing this, which I can't even believe. Not because I can't believe that I stick with things. I do stick with things. That's not why. I can't believe that the Ukrainians have been fighting this long. I never thought that they would still be fighting this far into the game. My buddy's getting married. We've been friends for 38 years, friends from college, since college. And it's his first marriage. We never thought he'd get married. And I'm very excited about it. I'm very happy to be attending the wedding. I'm very grateful to our dear friend of the channel, Arna, who gave me the confidence to pursue this trip. And I'm taking 3 weeks off and I'm going to the wedding. Now, Beijing is going to be interesting, so I'm doing some travel log videos from Beijing. And I'm only in China for 10 days. I'm also... Just by happenstance, the flight that I got takes me to the Netherlands, where I'm supposed to change planes to come back to Warsaw. But I have a good buddy in the Netherlands from Kitchen Ants. Some of you know about the work over at Kitchen Ants, where they dehydrate meals for the front line. And sometimes I'm lucky enough to be able to participate in that. A couple of the weeks that I was over there, I was sitting across from this mountain of a man, this Dutchman named Martin, and we became good buddies making dehydrated soups for the front line. And so I'm going to visit Martin too. He's got a house up on a dike in the north of the Netherlands. And in World War II, the Yahtzees took the house over and put a gun emplacement on the roof to act as part of the Atlantic Wall shield against Allied bombers coming in. So it's a historic house. It's a historic residence. Martin doesn't have experience gardening, so I'm going to help him spread some manure, and we're going to choose some perennial crops to plant and help get the garden started. So it's 3 weeks of vacation coming up for me. Things will be intermittent. Watch for lives, watch for videos, etc. And I will see everybody along the way. Oh, Nightshade, I'm spending 2 days in Amsterdam when I first get in. My friends from Berlin are coming in, and we're going to hit Boom Chicago, which I'm really looking forward to. Those guys do such great work. So yes, Boom Chicago is on the list, and my friends from Berlin are coming in. Thanks, Maddie. Nice to see you, Maddie. Good night, Steve. Night, Feisty. Thanks, Gary. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it, everybody. Clive, it's over. I'm not repeating everything for you. But I will try to, thanks, Arna. I will try to get these posted. Because I just realized there is, in the business center here, there is a desktop. So I should be able to get in there. I'll try that. Thanks, Gare. Thanks, Seawolf. Arna. Cheers, bro. Thanks, Van Man. Thanks, Phil. FSB. I'm feeling much better, Van. Thanks, man. Thanks, Chef Deb. Thanks, McNally. Marilyn Fuller, when did you get in? I didn't even see you. How you doing? Night, Refurb. Night, Nicola. Thanks, Jan Halverson. Grazie ancora, signore. Signora, sorry. Sorry, Vittoria. Sorry, Vittoria. Thank you, Scully. Scully, you got the first of the travelogue videos today. I don't know if you saw them, but thanks. Really beautiful day here in Warsaw. The sky was like an azure blue. Cold, though. Very cold. Eli tomorrow. Starts tomorrow. You're not wrong. Last night I was going to do a live, but I fell asleep watching Sherlock. The Benjamin Cumberbatch series, which is excellent if you have not seen it. Hey, Patrick. Hey, Martin. Good night. Good night, Mackie. I think it's going to be, Eli. I got to tell you, I think it's going to be. All right, kids, make it a great day and have a pleasant tomorrow. Thanks for all the well wishes, everybody. And again, big thanks to Derek Sands, who was the sponsor of tonight's live. Big thanks to Lars, who has the Discord server, Nightshade with the Peters Peeps group, and of course the best moderator team on the Tickety Talk. Happy Groundhog Day, everybody. Take care.